Chapter 13 of Uncle's Dream by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, translated by Frederick Wishaw. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Greg Giordano. Chapter 13. The prince entered and smiled benignly around. All the agitation which his conversation with Mosgliakoff, a quarter of an hour since, had aroused in his chicken heart vanished at the sight of the ladies. Those gentle creatures received him with chirps and exclamations of joy. Ladies always petted our old friend the prince, and were, as a rule, wonderfully familiar with him. He had a way of amusing them with his own individuality which was astonishing. Only this morning Felisata Michaelovna had announced that she would sit on his knee with the greatest pleasure, if he liked, because he was such a dear old pet of an old man. Maria Alexandrovna fastened her eyes on him to read, if she could, if it were but the slightest indication of his state of mind, and to get a possible idea for a way out of this horribly critical position. But there was nothing to be made of his face. It was just as before, just as ever it was. "Ah, here's the prince at last!" cried several voices. "Oh, prince, how we have waited and waited for you!" "With impatience, prince, with impatience!" Another chorus took up the strain. "Dear me, how very flattering!" said the old man, settling himself near the tea-table. The ladies immediately surrounded him. There only remained Natalia Dimitrievna and Mrs. Antipova with the hostess. Afanassy stood and smiled with great courtesy. Mosgliakoff also smiled as he gazed defiantly at Zina, who, without taking the slightest notice of him, took a chair near her father and sat down at the fireside. "Please do tell us, is it true that you are about to leave us so soon?" asked Felisata Michaelovna. Yes, mesdames, I am going abroad almost immediately." "Abroad, prince? Abroad? Why, what can have caused you to take such a step as that?" cried several ladies at once. Yes, abroad," said the prince. "And do you know it is principally for the sake of the new ideas." "How, new ideas? What new ideas? What does he mean?" the astonished ladies asked of one another. "Yes, quite so, new ideas," repeated the prince with an air of deep conviction. "Everybody goes abroad now for new ideas, and I'm going too, to see if I can pick any up." Up to this moment Maria Alexandrovna had listened to the conversation observantly, but it now struck her that the prince had entirely forgotten her existence, which would not do. "Allow me, prince, to introduce my husband, Afanassy Matveyevitch. He hastened up from our country seat so soon as ever he heard of your arrival in our house." Afanassy, under the impression that he was being praised, smiled amiably and beamed all over. Very happy, Afanassy Matveyevitch," said the prince. "Wait a moment, your name reminds me of something. Afanassy Matveyevitch. Yes, you are the man down at the village. Charming! Very glad, I'm sure. Do you remember me, my boy?" To Paul. "The nice little rhyme we fitted out to him? What was it?" "Oh, I know, prince," said Felisata Michaelovna. "When the husband's away, the wife will play." "Wasn't that it? We had it last year at the theatre." Yes, yes, quite so. Yes, the wife will play. That's it. Charming, charming. So you are that very man? Dear me, I'm very glad, I'm sure," said the prince, stretching out his hand, but not rising from his chair. "Dear me, and how is your health, my dear sir?" "H'm! Oh, he's quite well, thank you, prince, quite well," answered Maria Alexandrovna quickly. Yes, I see he is. He looks it. Are you still at the village? Dear me, very pleased, I'm sure. Why, how red he looks! And he's always laughing." Afanassy smiled and bowed and even scraped as the prince spoke, but at the last observation he suddenly, and without warning or apparent reason, burst into loud fits of laughter. The ladies were delighted. Zina flushed up, and with flashing eyes darted a look at her mother, who in turn was boiling over with rage. It was time to change the conversation. "Did you have a nice nap, prince?" she inquired in honeyed accents, but at the same time giving Afanassy to understand, with very un-honeyed looks, that he might go, well, anywhere. "Oh, I slept wonderfully, wonderfully! And do you know, I had such a most fascinating, bewitching dream!" "A dream! How delightful! I do so love to hear people tell their dreams!" cried Felisata. "Oh, a fascinating dream!" stammered the old man again. "Quite bewitching! But all the more a dead secret for that very reason." "Oh, prince, you don't mean to say you can't tell us?" said Mrs. Antipova. "I suppose it's an extraordinary dream, isn't it?" "A dead secret!" repeated the prince, purposely whetting the curiosity of the ladies, and enjoying the fun. "Then it must be interesting! Oh, dreadfully interesting!" cried other ladies. "I don't mind taking a bet that the prince dreamed that he was kneeling at some lovely woman's feet and making a declaration of love," said Felisata Michaelovna. "Confess now, prince, that it was so. Confess, dear prince, confess." "Yes, prince, confess!" the chorus took up the cry. The old man listened solemnly until the last voice was hushed. The ladies' guesswork flattered his vanity wonderfully. He was as pleased as he could be. "Though I did say that my dream was a dead secret," he replied at last, "still I am obliged to confess, dear lady, that to my great astonishment you have almost exactly guessed it." "I've guessed it! I've guessed it!" cried Felisata in a rapture of joy. "Well, prince, say what you like, but it's your plain duty to tell us the name of your beauty. Come now, isn't it?" Of course, prince." "Is she in this town?" "Dear prince, do tell us!" "Darling prince, do tell us! You positively must!" was heard on all sides. "Mesdames, if you must know, I will go so far as to say that it is the most charming, and bewitching, and virtuous lady I know," said the prince unctuously. "The most bewitching, and belonging to this place? Who can it be?" cried the ladies, interchanging looks and signs. "Why, of course, the young lady who is considered the reigning beauty here," remarked Natalia Dimitrievna, rubbing her hands and looking hard at Zina with those cat's eyes of hers. All joined her in staring at Zina. "But, prince, if you dream those sort of things, why should not you marry somebody bona fide?" asked Felisata, looking around her with a significant expression. "We would marry you off beautifully, Prince," said someone else. "Oh, dear Prince, do marry!" chirped another. "Marry, marry, do marry!" was now the cry on all sides. "Yes, why should I not marry?" said the old man, confused and bewildered with all the cries and exclamations around him. "Uncle!" cried Mosgliakoff. "Yes, my boy, quite so. I understand what you mean. I may as well tell you, ladies, that I am not in a position to marry again, and having passed one most delightful evening with our fascinating hostess, I must start away to-morrow to the Hermitage, and then I shall go straight off abroad and study the question of the enlightenment of Europe." Zina shuddered and looked over at her mother with an expression of unspeakable anguish. But Maria Alexandrovna had now made up her mind how to act. All this while she had played a mere waiting game, observing closely and carefully all that was said or done, although she could only see too clearly that her plans were undermined, and that her foes had come about her in numbers which were too great to be altogether pleasant. At last, however, she comprehended the situation. She thought completely. She had gauged how the matter stood in all its branches, and she determined to slay the 100-headed hydra at one fell blow. With great majesty, then, she rose from her seat and approached the tea-table, stalking across the room with firm and dignified tread as she looked around upon her pigmy foes. The fire of inspiration blazed in her eyes. She resolved to smite once, and annihilate this vile nest of poisonous scandal adders, to destroy the miserable Mosgliakoff as though he were a black beetle, and with one triumphant blow to reassert all her influence over this miserable old idiot prince. Some audacity was requisite for such a performance, of course, but Maria Alexandrovna had not even to put her hand in her pocket for a supply of that particular commodity. "Mesdames," she began solemnly, and with much dignity. Maria Alexandrovna was always a great admirer of solemnity. "Mesdames, I have been a listener to your conversation, to your witty remarks and merry jokes, long enough, and I consider that my turn has come, at last, to put in a word in contribution. You are aware we have all met here accidentally, to my great joy, I must add, to my very great joy. But, though I should be the first to refuse to divulge a family secret before the strictest rules of ordinary propriety rendered such a revelation necessary, yet, as my dear guest here appears to me to have given us to understand, by covert hints and insinuations, that he is not averse to the matter becoming common property, he will forgive me if I have mistaken his intentions. I cannot help feeling that the prince is not only not averse, but actually desires me to make known our great family secret. Am I right, Prince?" "Yes, quite so, quite so. Very glad, very glad, I'm sure," said the prince, who had not the remotest idea what the good lady was talking about. Maria Alexandrovna, for greater effect, now paused to take breath, and looked solemnly and proudly around upon the assembled guests, all of whom were now listening with greedy but slightly disturbed curiosity to what their hostess was about to reveal to them. Mosgliakoff shuddered. Zina flushed up, and arose from her seat. Afanassy, seeing that something important was about to happen, blew his nose violently, in order to be ready for any emergency. "Yes, ladies, I am ready, nay, gratified, to entrust my family secret to your keeping. This evening, the prince, overcome by the beauty and virtues of my daughter, has done her the honour of proposing to me for her hand. Prince," she concluded in trembling, tearful accents, "dear Prince, you must not, you cannot blame me for my candour. It is only my overwhelming joy that could have torn this dear secret prematurely from my heart, and what mother is there who will blame me in such a case as this?" Words fail me to describe the effect produced by this most unexpected sally on the part of Maria Alexandrovna. All present appeared to be struck dumb with amazement. These perfidious guests, who had thought to frighten Maria Alexandrovna by showing her that they knew her secret, who thought to annihilate her by the premature revelation of that secret, who thought to overwhelm her, for the present, with their hints and insinuations, these guests were themselves struck down and pulverized by this fearless candour on her part. Such audacious frankness argued the consciousness of strength. So that the prince actually, and of his own free will, is really going to marry Zina? So they did not drink and bully and swindle him into it? So he is not to be married burglariously and forcibly? So Maria Alexandrovna is not afraid of anybody? Then we can't knock this marriage on the head, since the prince is not being married compulsorily. Such were the questions and exclamations the visitors now put to themselves and each other. But very soon the whispers, which the hostess's words had awakened all over the room, suddenly changed to chirps and exclamations of joy. Natalia Dimitrievna was the first to come forward and embrace Maria Alexandrovna. Then came Mrs. Antipova, next Felisata Michaelovna. All present were shortly on their feet and moving about, changing places. Many of the ladies were pale with rage. Some began to congratulate Zina, who was confused enough without. Some attached themselves to the wretched Afanassy Matveyevitch. Maria Alexandrovna stretched her arms theatrically and embraced her daughter almost by force. The prince alone gazed upon the company with a sort of confused wonder, but he smiled on as before. He seemed to be pleased with the scene. At sight of the mother and daughter embracing, he took out his handkerchief and wiped his eye, in the corner of which there really was a tear. Of course the company fell upon him with their congratulations before very long. "I congratulate you, Prince, I congratulate you!" came from all sides at once. "So you are going to be married, Prince? So you really are going to marry? Dear Prince, you really are to be married, then?" "Yes, yes, quite so, quite so!" replied the old fellow, delighted beyond measure with all the rapture and atmosphere of congratulation around him. "And I confess that I like best of all is the very kind interest you all take in me. I shall never forget it, never forget it! Charming, charming! You have brought the tears to my eyes." "Kiss me, Prince!" cried Felisata Michaelovna, in stentorian tones. "And I confess further," continued the prince, as well as the constant physical interruptions from all sides allowed him, "I confess I am beyond measure astonished that Maria Alexandrovna, our revered hostess, should have had the extraordinary penetration to guess my dream. She might have dreamed it herself instead of me. Extraordinary perspicacity! Wonderful, wonderful!" "Oh, Prince, your dream again!" "Oh, come, Prince, admit, confess!" cried one and all. "Yes, Prince, it is no use concealing it now. It is time we divulged this secret of ours," said Maria Alexandrovna, severely and decidedly. "I quite entered into your refined, allegorical manner, the delightful delicacy with which you gave me to understand, by means of subtle insinuations, that you wish the fact of your engagement to be made known. Yes, ladies, it is all true. This very evening the prince knelt at my daughter's feet, and actually, and by no means in a dream, made a solemn proposal of marriage to her." "Yes, yes, quite so, just exactly like that, and under the very circumstances she describes, just like reality," said the old man. "My dear young lady," he continued, bowing with his greatest courtesy to Zina, who had by no means recovered from her amazement as yet, "my dear young lady, I swear to you, I should never have dared thus to bring your name into prominence, if others had not done so before me. It was a most bewitching dream, a bewitching dream, and I am doubly happy that I have been permitted to describe it. Charming, charming!" "Dear me, how very curious it is! He insists on sticking to his idea about a dream," whispered Mrs. Antipova to the now slightly paling Maria Alexandrovna. Alas, that great woman had felt her heart beating more quickly than she liked without this last little reminder. "What does it mean?" whispered the ladies among themselves. "Excuse me, prince," began Maria Alexandrovna, with a miserable attempt at a smile, "but I confess you astonish me a great deal. What is this strange idea of yours about a dream? I confess I had thought you were joking up to this moment; but, if it be a joke on your part, it is exceedingly out of place. I am anxious to ascribe your conduct to absence of mind, but—" "Yes, it may really be a case of absence of mind," put in Natalia Dimitrievna in a whisper. "Yes, yes, of course, quite so. It may easily be absence of mind," confirmed the prince, who clearly did not in the least comprehend what they were trying to get out of him. "And with regard to this subject, let me tell you a little anecdote. I was asked to a funeral at Petersburg, and I went, and made a little mistake about it, and thought it was a birthday party. So I brought a lovely bouquet of camellias. When I came in and saw the master of the house lying in state on a table, I didn't know where to look, or what to do with my camellias, I assure you." "Yes, but, prince, this is not the moment for stories," observed Maria Alexandrovna, with great annoyance. "Of course my daughter has no need to beat up a husband, but at the same time I must repeat that you yourself here, just by the piano, made her an offer of marriage. I did not ask you to do it. I may say I was amazed to hear it. However, since the episode of your proposal, I may say that I have thought of nothing else, and I have only waited for your appearance to talk the matter over with you. But now—well, I am a mother, and this is my daughter. You speak of a dream. I supposed naturally that you were anxious to make your engagement known by the medium of an allegory. Well, I am perfectly well aware that some one may have thought fit to confuse your mind on this matter. In fact, I may say that I have my suspicions as to the individual responsible for such a— However, kindly explain yourself, prince. Explain yourself quickly and satisfactorily. You cannot be permitted to jest in this fashion in a respectable house." "Yes, yes, quite so, quite so. One should not jest in respectable houses," remarked the prince, still bewildered, but beginning gradually to grow a little disconcerted. "But that is no answer to my question, prince. I ask you to reply categorically. I insist upon your confirming here and at once, the fact that this very evening you made a proposal of marriage to my daughter." "Quite so, quite so. I am ready to confirm that. but I have told the company all about it, and Felisata Michaelovna actually guessed my dream." "Not dream! It was not a dream!" shouted Maria Alexandrovna furiously. "It was not a dream, Prince, but you were wide awake. Do you hear? Awake! You were awake!" "Awake?" cried the prince, rising from his chair in astonishment. "Well, there you are, my friend! It has come about just as you said," he added, turning to Mosgliakoff. "But I assure you, most esteemed Maria Alexandrovna, that you are under a delusion. I am quite convinced that I saw the whole scene in a dream." "Goodness gracious!" cried Maria Alexandrovna. "Oh, do not disturb yourself, dear Maria Alexandrovna," said Natalia Dimitrievna. "Probably the prince has forgotten. He will recollect himself by and by." "I am astonished at you, Natalia Dimitrievna," said the now furious hostess. "As if people forget this sort of thing! Excuse me, prince, but are you laughing at us? Or what are you doing? Are you trying to act one of Dumas' heroes, or Lauzun, or Felicourt, or somebody? But, if you will excuse me saying so, you are a good deal too old for that sort of thing, and I assure you, your amiable little play-acting will not do here. My daughter is not a French viscountess, I tell you. This very evening, and in this very spot here, my daughter sang a ballad to you, and you, amazed at the beauty of her singing, went down on your knees and made her a proposal of marriage. I am not talking in my sleep, am I? Surely I am wide awake. Speak, prince, am I asleep or not?" "Yes, of course, quite so. I don't know," said the bewildered old man. "I mean, I don't think I am dreaming now, but a little while ago I was asleep, you see, and while asleep I had this dream that I—" "Goodness me, prince, I tell you, you are not dreaming! Not dreaming, do you hear? Not dreaming! What on earth do you mean? Are you raving, prince, or what?" "Yes, yes! Deuce only knows! I don't know! It seems to me I'm getting bewildered," said the prince, looking around him in a state of considerable mental perturbation. "But, my dear prince, how can you possibly have dreamed this, when I can tell you all the minutest details of your proposal, and of the circumstances attending it? You have not told any of us of these details. How could I possibly have known what you dreamed?" "But perhaps the prince did tell someone of his dream, in detail," remarked Natalia Dimitrievna. "Yes, quite so, quite so! Perhaps I did tell someone all about my dream, in detail," said the now completely lost and bewildered prince. "Here's a nice comedy!" whispered Felisata Michaelovna to her neighbour. "My goodness me, this is too much for anybody's patience!" cried Maria Alexandrovna, beside herself with helpless rage. "Do you hear me, prince? She sang you a ballad! Sang you a ballad! Surely you didn't dream that too?" "Certainly, certainly, quite so. It really did seem to me that she sang me a ballad," murmured the prince, and a ray of recollection seemed to flash across his face. "My friend," he continued, addressing Mosgliakoff, "I believe I forgot to tell you, there was a ballad sung, a ballad all about castles and knights, and some troubadour or other came in. Of course, I remember it all quite well. I recollect I did turn over the ballad. It puzzles me much, for now it seems as though I had really heard the ballad, and not dreamed at all." "I confess, uncle," said Mosgliakoff, as calmly as he could, though his voice shook with agitation. "I confess I do not see any difficulty in bringing your actual experience and your dream into strict conformity. It is consistent enough. You probably did hear the ballad. Miss Zenaida sings beautifully. Probably you all adjourned into this room, and Zenaida Afanassievna sang you the song. Of course, I was not there myself, but in all probability this ballad reminded you of old times. Very likely it reminded you of that very Vicomtesse with whom you used once to sing, and of whom you were speaking to-day. Well, and then, when you went up for your nap and lay down, thinking of the delightful impressions made upon you by the ballad and all, you dreamed that you were in love, and made an offer of marriage to the lady who had inspired you with that feeling." Maria Alexandrovna was struck dumb by this display of barefaced audacity. "Why, yes, my boy, yes, of course! That's exactly how it really was!" cried the prince, in an ecstasy of delight. "Of course it was the delightful impressions that caused me to dream it. I certainly remember the song, and then I went away and dreamed about my proposal, and that I really wished to marry. The Viscountess was there too. How beautifully you have unravelled the difficulty, my dear boy! Well, now I am quite convinced that it was all a dream. Maria Alexandrovna, I assure you, you are under a delusion. It was a dream. I should not think of trifling with your feelings otherwise." "Oh, indeed! Now I perceive very clearly whom we have to thank for making this dirty mess of our affairs!" cried Maria Alexandrovna, beside herself with rage, and turning to Mosgliakoff. "You are the man, sir, the dishonest person! It is you who stirred up this mud! It is you that has puzzled an unhappy old idiot into this eccentric behaviour, because you yourself were rejected. But we shall be quits, my friend, for this offence. You shall pay! You shall pay! Wait a bit, my dishonest friend, wait a bit!" "Maria Alexandrovna!" cried Mosgliakoff, blushing in his turn until he looked as red as a boiled lobster. "Your words are to such an extent, I really don't know how to express my opinion of you. No lady would ever permit herself to—at all events I am but protecting my relative. You must allow that to allure an old man like this is—" "Quite so, quite so, allure—" began the prince, trying to hide himself behind Mosgliakoff. "Afanassy Matveyevitch!" cried Maria Alexandrovna, in unnatural tones. "Do you hear, sir, how these people are shaming and insulting me? Have you quite exempted yourself from all the responsibilities of a man? Or are you actually a wooden block, instead of the father of a family? What do you stand blinking there for, eh? Any other husband would have wiped out such an insult to his family with the blood of the offender long ago." "Wife!" began Afanassy, solemnly, delighted and proud to find that a need for him had sprung up for once in his life. "Wife, you are quite certain, now, that you did not dream all this? You might so easily have fallen asleep and dreamed it, and then muddled it all up with what really happened, you know, and so—" But Afanassy Matveyevitch was never destined to complete his ingenious but unlucky guess. Up to this moment the guests had all restrained themselves, and had managed, cleverly enough, to keep up an appearance of solid and judicial interest in the proceedings. But at the first sound, almost, of Afanassy's voice, a burst of uncontrollable laughter rose like a tempest from all parts of the room. Maria Alexandrovna, forgetting all the laws of propriety in her fury, tried to rush at her unlucky consort, but she was held back by force, or doubtless she would have scratched out that gentleman's eyes. Natalia Dimitrievna took advantage of the occasion to add a little, if only a little, drop more of poison to the bitter cup. "But, dear Maria Alexandrovna," she said, in the sweetest honeyed tones, "perhaps it may be that it really was so, as your husband suggests, and that you are actually under a strange delusion." "How? What was a delusion?" cried Maria Alexandrovna, not quite catching the remark. "Why, my dear Maria, I was saying, might it have been so, dear, after all? These sort of things do happen sometimes, you know." "What sort of things do happen, eh? What are you trying to do with me? What am I to make of you?" "Why, perhaps, dear, you really did dream it all." "What! Dream it? I dreamed it? And you dare suggest such a thing to me, straight to my face?" "Oh, why not? Perhaps it really was the case," observed Felisata Michaelovna. "Yes, quite so; very likely it actually was the case," muttered the old prince. "He too? Gracious heavens!" cried poor Maria Alexandrovna, wringing her hands. "Dear me, how you do worry yourself, Maria Alexandrovna! You should remember that dreams are sent us by a good Providence. If Providence so wills it, there is no more to be said. Providence gives us the word, and we can neither weep nor be angry at its dictum." "Quite so, quite so! We can't be angry about it," observed the prince. "Look here, do you take me for a lunatic or not?" said Maria Alexandrovna. She spoke with difficulty, so dreadfully was she panting with fury, it was more than flesh and blood could stand. She hurriedly grasped a chair and fell fainting into it. There was a scene of great excitement. "She has fainted in obedience to the laws of propriety," observed Natalia Dimitrievna to Mrs. Antipova. But at this moment, when the general bewilderment and confusion had reached its height, and when the scene was strained to the last possible point of excitement, another actor suddenly stepped to the front, one who had been silent hitherto, but who immediately threw quite a different complexion on the scene. End of Chapter 13. Recording by Greg Giordano. Newport Richey, Florida.